And welcome to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. Our fearless leader, Mark Williams, is not with us today. So manning the ship is yours truly, Mr. John Folkowski, a.k.a. Filk, a.k.a. An assortment of other names, which I probably can't repeat on here right now. Have to get the nameplate up there, show the props. So I will be captaining things today. And my longtime partner, going back to the Off the Post show that we were on our previous network, Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
What's going on, Filk? Another show. Filk. Mark is en route to Nashville, or if he's already there. Hopefully, he had a safe trip and hopefully has a good time there. But yeah, we'll be running the show for you guys today. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm looking forward to it.
And speaking of which, let's get right into everything here. So to start with the week, we will start with the Rangers here. And winning two straight in Montreal and Toronto after going 0-1-1, which was really not a great start to the season, even though the Dallas game looked better. They looked like I don't even know what in Washington, like who did it and ran. And then they come back with a better effort against Dallas, a little bit of a blunder there to end that one. And then Montreal, they find a way to win. And Toronto, I wouldn't call that a good win, but they don't ask you how you win. They ask you how many wins you have at the end of the season, Anthony. So
that's true. That's very true.
So what were you seeing in Montreal and Toronto?
Well, in Montreal and Toronto, I saw a team carried by the Rangers goaltender. I thought Igor Shesterkin was excellent in those two games. I thought the game against Dallas, he was just kind of okay. I mean, I wouldn't say he was good. I wouldn't say he was bad. Kind of like right in that middle ground in between. But in Montreal and Toronto, it was another level, especially the game against Toronto. He really carried the Rangers to victory there. So, kudos on him. But that's what your starting goaltender needs to do every now and then. Steal games. Obviously, preferably you don't want him to do it 2 games in a row. But like you said, any way you get 2 points in this league is 2 points in the bank, regardless. So, that's good on him. And as far as you referenced the first game against Washington, let's face it, the Rangers didn't look ready to play, and he had a Capitals team. First game at home, they were dialed in. But yeah, so 2-1-1. I mean, it's fine. As a Ranger fan, I don't think you can be disappointed, but I would definitely be encouraged that Shesterkin's play thus far.
Yeah, that was my take with everything. I was looking at the way that they played in the game against Washington, and I just thought they were disheveled. They were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. They were taking too many penalties. They were trying to play an extremely physical game at the expense of team discipline and staying out of the box, which ended up costing them in the end. So they lost that game badly. And then the next game, they come back against Dallas, and they looked good in, I would say, the second and third periods. And honestly, from Jacob Trouba, that was probably, those 2 periods were the best 2 periods of hockey I think I've seen him play as a Ranger. He was a force in those 2 periods. And then in overtime, obviously, I can't blame him, because as someone who plays defense, I saw that 2-on-1 developing. Tyler Seguin was coming in at the end of that picture, if you watch the replay again. Yeah. Trouba saw that, which is good as a defenseman. You're supposed to be able to pick that up. But he misplayed Miro Heiskanen horribly, and then the puck went off of his stick trying to stop that shot and over Shesterkin in. So that was bad. To tell you that the game against Montreal, they looked a hell of a lot better. Even though Trouba and Miller, as a pairing, were not good in that game at all. No. That was probably the worst game I think I've seen them play as a pairing. They played better against Toronto, but again, Toronto, they stole that. There's nothing else to say other than the fact that they stole that game. Because Igor Shesterkin, find that man the best possible steakhouse around and make sure that he doesn't pay for a dime the entire night, whether it's drinks. If he wants borscht brought in from Russia in the middle of eating dinner at that steakhouse, you fly that man in some borscht. I don't care, because he deserves it after that one. And Valakat, funny enough, was chirping Lundqvist a little bit. Actually, I wouldn't say chirping, but kind of messing with Hank a little bit there. And he turned around and said, this was one of the most epic goaltending performances we ever seen. And then he looked over at Hank, and then the two of them started laughing. And then Valakat, obviously made homage to many of Hank's great performances and said that it was kind of like many of his. And it was. That was classic. Oh, here we are for the last 15 years. We had one goaltender who's going into the Hall of Fame that literally carried the team on a nightly basis. And now we have another who's now carrying the team on a nightly basis. So Igor Shesterkin is playing, I know it's early, but he's playing Vezina caliber goaltender right now. And I don't know if there's any way to argue against that. So, but more on that in a second. Next matter of hand is Chris Kreider has 3 goals in 4 games. He had 3 in his first 3. Mika Zibanejad now has 5 points, and it looks like Mika Zibanejad is surely earning the money on that extension and proving the Rangers right for extending him when they did at the AAV that they did.
So with Kreider, I'm not, I can't really say I'm surprised. This is a guy that will score in bunches and then he'll disappear for a while. So it's good to see at least started off hot. Let's see if he can keep that going. But his body of work over his career suggests that eventually he's going to be a ghost for a while. Hopefully he can break that trend. Throwing in a Justin Lean reference there. But, that's for you, Goldberg, if he's watching. But
I hope he is. I really do. Hey, Goldberg.
And then Zibanejad, when you get paid the big dollars, you have to produce. And that's going to be the onus is on him now. He got paid. He needs to prove to organization. I'll say it like I'm Canadian. Organization that they made the right move in locking him up. So he's been good. I thought Panarin. I know Panarin scored the game winner in Toronto. I thought Panarin's kind of just been so far. Usually you expect a lot more out of him. I thought he's just been average, not his typical breadman self.
Yes.
I thought Lafreniere, he scored the goal in Montreal, but I thought Lafreniere has just kind of been, okay. He hasn't really stood out to me in the games that I've seen. But I would say overall, Zibanejad's been one of their better forwards. And on defense, is there really any secret? Adam Fox is playing at an Adam Fox level.
Who else is new?
Yeah. Jacob.
In other news, the sky is blue. More than 11.
And then another point, Jacob Trouba, like $8 million. You want at least the offense, and that hasn't been there. But at least be a stalwart defensively, if that's the case. And even then, some of the defensive just mishaps he's been doing. It's like, so why are you getting paid $8 million again if you're not going to produce offensively and you're not going to provide exceptional defense? Boy, you really need to step your game up because you're letting the rest of your teammates down.
Yeah, I'm with you on Jacob Trouba. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen my Twitter, but after every game, I do a Rangers good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah,
and every game at the end of it, I do the tweet, and I've mentioned Jacob Trouba more than I would like to already. I've mentioned Chris Kreider and how he's kind of been invisible more than I'd like to already. And I've talked about Igor being exceptional, pretty much how much I would like to, but I would like to not have to have him in the exceptional column when I add an exceptional column every game. So this team has to step up. The offense has been anemic.
Yes.
We'll talk again a little more about that in a bit. But like I was alluding to before, Vezina caliber right now. How can you? I know it's early, but he has been phenomenal in all 3 games he's played in. And it's funny because they went from Georgiev on opening night against Washington.
Which is a weird. I don't understand what the thought process was there. But
listen, I get it's a back-to-back. It's early, and you don't want to run Igor down. But at the same time, do you really want to start your worser of your two goaltenders, someone who really has kind of been maligned for the last season or so now, against a still powerful Washington Capitals team that had Alexander Ovechkin in the lineup? And by the way, he made his presence felt there, kind of still just climbing up, the historical ladder of goals scored, making his case to be the greatest goal scorer ever, as we know it. But Igor Shesterkin, I think, probably should have started that game, and Alexander Georgiev probably should have went against Dallas if they really didn't want to wear one of the two out early. So, but again, Gallant, adjustment period. I guess he's feeling out the goalies. I just hope that there's no carousel or any competition for the number one spot, because if this continues for any longer of a period of time, there's going to be no way that Gerard Gallant can actually look at these two and say that Alexander Georgiev should be battling for that number one spot.
No way.
I mean, you remember how it was last year. Quinn was trying to say there was a competition between the two of them, and never let either one of them get into a rhythm, as Mark has pointed out many times in the past. So, I mean, Igor Shesterkin's really kind of been stepping up, and he's another one. He got an extension, he got a new deal, and now he's really making the best of it. Again, early, but I mean, this is what you want to see. Every fan's biggest nightmare when a player gets a new contract is that they start off bad or have an extended slump afterwards, because then you start questioning whether that player should have gotten that deal. And Igor is leaving little to no doubt, if any doubt at all, that he should have gotten what he got. He might even be end up getting underpaid by sometime at the course of this deal, because he's just playing so well.
He is, like you said. It's 3 games, so it's obviously very, very early. But over this 3-game stretch, specifically the last 2 games, he has played at a Vezina caliber level. Obviously, sample size. Now let's just see him keep playing to that level as the games go on. But you can't really say anything else that other than he was really, really good the last 2 games. So good on him, and hopefully for the Rangers' sake, he keeps playing that way. With the caveat, you don't want to have your goaltender play at this level to win. So the Rangers' offense is going to need to step up in the next couple of seasons as the season ramps up.
Totally agree on that last part, and that's a good segue in here, or into our next part. What's gone right and what's gone wrong with this team?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, what's gone right is, Zibanejad, your best players, maybe your best players are being your best players, maybe with the exception of Panarin, but Zibanejad's playing well. Obviously, Adam Fox is playing well. Igor's playing well, so that's all good. I mean, what's gone wrong? I guess you can maybe say the offense, and the play of Jacob Trouba. Keandre Miller, I would say, that's gone wrong. They need to be better, because we all know, Nemeth and Tenorti aren't very good. So that means, and Lundqvist is still a kid, still feeling it out. So that means you're relying on Lindgren and Fox, and you can't rely on one pair to have success in the National Hockey League. So Trouba and Miller are going to have to, get their act together. There's no 2 ways about it.
I'm pretty much on board with everything you said here. In terms of what's gone right for me, Igor's the biggest part. I mean, he's just, like I said, he's been phenomenal. Mika has really earned his contract so far, and he had a monster game against Montreal. He had the assist on the Lafreniere goal, had a goal of his own. And you know what? Mika's been getting points. He's been getting points. Panarin, I have to put him under the meh category right now, because he found a way to get that overtime winner against Toronto, and he needed that more than anything. something looks off. I can't put a finger on it, but something really looks off. And I will say, to his credit, though, that FIlip doesn't look like he's really a fit at center. And not having Kakko and having another competent top 6 player on his line kind of drags him down. But the fact that he's got, I think 3 points or 4 points in 4 games, something like that, despite what's been going on with this team, I got to give Panarin credit there. Obviously, Adam Fox is Adam Fox. I don't need to say anything more there. There's really nothing else left to say. I made the comparison. He's like using Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl. Like he's a cheat code. or Michael Vick in Madden 2004, where he could just run around the field and throw the ball as far as possible. So that's Adam Fox for me. I would say Alexander Georgiev. I know it's one start, but he did not look good.
Oh, he wasn't very good.
No, Jacob Trouba and K'Andre Miller. We've talked about them. They worst game I think as a pairing against Montreal. The biggest concern I have is that K'Andre Miller has not looked good since the first half of last season.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't turn that around, you might have to send him to Hartford and have Zach Jones come up, because he really hasn't looked good for a long time. This is not just an overreaction to 3 or 4 games. It's not an overreaction to preseason play. This has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And if anything, he reminds me of Kreider in the way that relies a lot on physical tools, doesn't have the hockey sense and the top-end skill. So if the decision-making is off, he needs to go and relearn that against lesser competition so that he can build his confidence up and then come back up and really be effective. But we're going to move on here. And this is part of what's gone wrong as well, because it's not sustainable. The Rangers have lost 65% of faceoffs, over 65% of faceoffs in the last 2 games. Okay. Now, I know that people are going to say things like, well, faceoffs aren't that important. No, they are, especially when you're losing offensive zone draws, not only at even strength, but on the power play. Because the Rangers, and I've gone back and I've actually rewatched the games, they're losing about an average of 30 to 40 seconds per power play just by losing offensive zone draws. And if you're going to have a minute and a half and a minute or a minute of 20 seconds of power play time, as opposed to a minute and 40 to 2 minutes, you're giving yourself less chances to score. And that's part of why this offense has been anemic, because they're lacking possession. Possession equals chances for. Chances for can equal goals. Goals equals wins. So,
faceoffs are important. It's I think it's a very underrated stat in this game. And if you don't have center icemen that are going to win draws for you, you're going to be playing. You're going to be chasing the puck more often than not. So, you need those guys who really dig in there and have many different ways of being able to win a draw. Back, forward, tie a guy up. You really need to know what you're doing and measure up your opponent when you're going in the circle. And the Rangers centermen need to be better. And listen, it's no secret that, one of the Rangers areas where they lack is, at the position of center ice. So they could use more depth there. And overall, when you lack at center ice, chances are your faceoffs are going to suffer. So they just need, listen, it's early in the season. I'm sure it's something that they'll focus on in practices, but yeah, they definitely have to be better, because I don't think, that rate of amount of losing faceoffs is a recipe for success at all. I mean, it's just not. So they need to find a way to be better.
Yeah, and you know what? And center ice play wins in the NHL. We've talked about that. We've referenced the Kings and their 1-2 punch. We've referenced Pittsburgh and their 1-2 punch. I mean, we could go through a number of teams that had really good 1-2 punches down the middle that have won. I mean, Boston as well, with Krejci and Bergeron, and even Savard there for a bit before they won the cup. But again, you need better center play. Hopefully, FIlip can start playing better, because if Breadman gets going, that can help Chytil. If Chytil looks like he's, going to be the one that that can step up at some point, that helps the Rangers out going forward. If not, then you might be looking at a deadline deal. So we'll see what happens there. But before we move forward to the Islanders, I just wanted to say that this is my first time really kind of manning the ship here. You guys are probably already aware of that. I see all your comments. I see everything that's coming through. I'm sorry if I'm not as responsive this week. I've got a little more responsibility than I usually do. So I just wanted to say I'm not blowing any of you guys off. We will definitely have a ton of Q&A time. We will try to get through everything as soon as possible. I know that there's other things to talk about. There's actually one more thing we have to talk about the Rangers before we move on. I will get to that in a second. I'm pretty sure you guys already know what it is, because there's definitely some discourse about it in the last few days or so. But yes, and thank you for the donations from Brody and Steven. So we really do appreciate it. It's awesome. I don't care if it's beer money. I don't care if it's a few bucks. We are just happy to be doing this, and you guys are supporting us the way you guys are all supporting us. Even if it's not donations, you guys are just here watching. The numbers are going up. The subscriber counts are going. All of you guys that are in here right now have been with us from day one, and we can't tell you how much we really do appreciate that. So the train's going forward. Everything's going up to the top. Please stick with us. We're going to have a lot of good content coming to you guys in the future. Thank you so very, very much.
Thanks, guys.
And one more thing that we're going to get to before we go on. And I'm sorry, I didn't really have a banner made for this yet. So I'm just going to get rid of the banner that we have up for now. And that is the Vitaly Kravtsov saga. And so Arthur Staple, our good friend, or a very, very good friend of Anthony's as well, has taken over Rick Carpiniello's status at the Athletic as the head beat writer for the Rangers. So in addition to doing his Islanders work, he's double dipping for both New York teams. And my run request, post your good, bad. Ooh, okay. You know what? Sean, I could totally get with that, actually. I will. So I will do that. I do not agree with that.
I mean, I don't either. I mean, listen, this is a guy that feels like he was jerked around. And I get why people will be upset that he didn't just be a good soldier and report to Hartford. But I said it before, this is the risk you face with Russians sometimes. They'd rather go home rather than play in the AHL. It's just the really the facts of it. And also, like I said, he feels like he had a spot in the team. And if you read Arthur Staples' piece in the Athletic about the situation, there's so much more that stems to it. So I don't blame Kakko Kravtsov for handling it the way he did.
And this is a point that I keep seeing, and I'm going to debunk this right now. So the last time around, if you guys remember, this happened, 2 seasons ago? So the last time around, he didn't make the team, and the organization went with players that didn't belong at the NHL level in favor of him. So you played Brendan Smith at forward, you had Michael Haley up, you had Greg McKegg, and you also had Brett Howden and Phil DiGiuseppe. So you had 5 guys playing in your bottom 6 that really didn't need to be there, that ended up in one way or another being detriments at the team. And hindsight's 2020. Yeah. I don't want to hear this stuff. I really don't. Listen, I wanted Wahlstrom. Anthony and I were there. If you could find the audio from me, I was literally broadcasting live while Anthony and others were trying to get interviews for us. But I wanted Wahlstrom. I'm not going to lie. I thought Wahlstrom would have been the pick there. They needed a goal scorer. I thought it fit. And this point is BS because they're doing it again. They're playing guys like Dryden Hunt, Julian Gauthier over him at forward. And not only that, but is Barclay Goodrow really good enough offensively to be a third liner? Because he hasn't really shown me anything like that so far. I mean, have you seen anything from Barclay Goodrow that would justify him having a third line spot over Vitaly Kravtsov, Anthony?
No, not at all. I guess he's trying to build more of a prototypical checking line as your third line, but Goudreau is not nearly doesn't nearly have the offensive ability that Vitaly Kravtsov has. But again, you can analyze it to death, but really when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, is the Rangers just pissed off and alienated a top 10 pick again, and now they're going to trade him. Simple as that. And it's asset. It's bad. It's just bad asset management now. That's what it comes down to. So now they just have to try to just get the best return they can. I don't know how good that return is going to be, but I don't see the reason why people are placing most of this on Vitaly Kravtsov. I just don't.
I will say that Vitaly Kravtsov is definitely not free of blame. He should have taken the assignment. Listen. My mentality, what I would have done is I would have went down there and I would have played my ass off to the point where I'd go full John Cena on them. I'm untouchable, but I'm forcing you to feel me. Word life, basic thugonomics. Yes, I dropped another wrestling reference. Deal with it. But that's what I would have done if I was Vitaly Kravtsov. I would have went down there and I would have just absolutely forced them. I would have forced the issue. I would have put it on them to say, hey, you got to call me up because you need me and I'm producing like crazy down here. I really, honestly, I think they've mishandled it. I think Kravtsov is to blame for part of it. But
if you read the piece in Athletic, you would see that there's issues between them. So I don't see how you can blame Vitaly Kravtsov at all.
And no, you can't see me, buddy. You can't, because I'm John Cena. And that's what Vitaly Kravtsov would have done, or should have done, I should say. That's what I would have done. But the problem is that Chris Drury has gone and made this a personal thing, like how Kevin Adams made the Jack Eichel saga a personal thing. And what happens when you make business personal like that? Things get screwed up. As a professional sports team executive, you're supposed to be able to put your emotions and feelings aside, and you're supposed to be able to conduct business and handle different types of personalities to the point where you optimize functionality for the business, for the organization. And this front office, in two different regimes so far, or maybe not two different regimes, but one person has been involved in both instances. Actually, in all three. Actually, he's been involved in 3 of the big 5 instances, and that's Chris Drury. And Chris Drury is not off to a good start with this organization. So I don't understand how you can't say that the team is to take more of the blame than the player at this point, because although again, the player is definitely part of the problem, but look at the New York Giants and how they dealt with Odell Beckham Jr. and the way that they handled him for 4 or 5 years before they traded him. I mean, you gotta, when you have talents like that, I'm not necessarily saying coddle them, but work with them. Talk to them. And you can't chew people out in front of an entire team in practice, especially if it's a non-playoff roster player. Like, you can't do that. You can't. It's wrong. It's unprofessional. It's not right. You want to talk about Kravtsov being unprofessional? Fine. Got no problem with that. But Drury, that's even worse. You can't do that. And the old saying is, you want respect, you got to give it.
And, but before we move on, I have an interesting, when you talked about what you can move him for, the Senators have been looking to move Erik Brannstrom. He was the centerpiece of the Mark Stone trade. High draft pick, and Brannstrom. I don't know why they're looking to move him, but the guy last year had 13 points in 30 games as a defenseman on a bad Senators team. I think that's pretty good. So, and he's a left side defense. Maybe there's a trade to be made where Kravtsov goes to Ottawa for Erik Brannstrom, and Brannstrom can take one of the bottom pairing left spot defense on the Rangers. He's 22 years old, still has a lot of upside. So I personally don't know why Ottawa's ready looking to move him already, but I mean that's the type of move that maybe the Rangers could take a chance on.
And our friend Greg Ellis is, just basically calling me a short bus driver. No big deal. But I've seen the word about Brannstrom. Do the Rangers really need another defenseman at this point? That's the problem. I mean, Hayton would make more sense for me because it's two players from the same exact draft class.
Yeah.
Two players both in disgruntled situations that need changes of scenery. Two players that were top 10 draft picks. But I don't even know if Hayton's really the answer. I get it. They need center help. And Hayton was a reach as well. There are a lot of people, like when I remember you and I both talking about what was Arizona thinking taking him at 5, and then he ends up being a World Junior hero in 2020, on the team with Lafreniere that won the gold. But I really don't know if I'm confident in him. There's something's going to come to a head, and Kyprios and Friedman and Dreger, they're reporting that there's interest in multiple teams.
Yeah,
and Rangers aren't going to make a deal for nothing, for no reason. So,
if you like that video, we got a lot more. So check out any of these that are right over here. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.